Hello, hi, and a very, very good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're checking in from. I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Thank you so much for taking time to be part of today's AD Self Service Plus webinar. I am Sharada Murthy. I work with the product team here at Manage Engine. I'm a product expert in AD Self Service Plus, and I am going to be your presenter for the day. Before I jump into today's session, I would like to do a very quick audio and video check. So if you can hear me loud and clear, and if you have no issues in viewing the screen, please drop in a yes message in the chat box provided. Waiting in for a couple of confirmations before I proceed further with today's session. If you can hear me loud and clear, and if you have no issues in viewing the screen, please drop in a yes message in the chat box provided. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. So with no further delay, I'm going to very quickly jump to talk about Active Directory password reset for remote users. This definitely comes in handy, especially if you work with the on-premises Active Directory, or if you work with a hybrid infrastructure where you would like to make use of a tool to facilitate users in your organization to be able to seamlessly reset passwords from anywhere at any time, but at the same time securely. All right. But before I do that, before I talk to you about how you can achieve this, I'm curious to know what part of today's audience are existing customers of AD Self-Service Plus. So please take a couple of seconds to answer the poll that you see on the screen. Also, a very quick disclaimer. I'm working remotely. I'm checking in from the comfort of my home. And yes, many a times there are issues with the home network. You know how it is. So in case there are any technical glitches at any point of time, please keep me notified by dropping a message in the chat box provided if you have any issues with the broadcast, the audio or video at any point of time. Pardon me. If you have issues with the audio or video at any point of time, please keep me notified by dropping a message in the chat box provided. That said, you can also choose to drop in your questions that you have that you like to direct at me in the Q&A tab that is available in your Zoom console. Please drop in your questions in the Q&A tab so I will be able to take time to answer them live and address all your questions that you have. So yes, thank you so much for taking time to answer the poll. We have about 70% of you who have answered the poll who are existing customers of AD Self-Service Plus. So I can promise that this session is going to be a breeze through. It's going to be a cakewalk. But while we talk about remote users, I think the very first thing that we need to address is, when and where this became a problem on a global level, right? Pardon me. So when you look at remote usage, it drastically increased last year with the onset of COVID-19. We were all forced to work remotely. We had to, move and work from our homes, from the comfort of our homes remotely on a global level. And that is also a situation that not many people were prepared for, not many administrators were prepared for, both from a management perspective as well as a security perspective. And it was pretty obvious because with onset of COVID, with mass remote working kicking in on a global level, anywhere after February 2020, we saw a drastic spike in cybersecurity attacks. And I have a few snippets on the screen talking about phishing and social engineering attacks and samples of the WHO phishing mail as well. But what's more important here is to try and understand what we can do to safeguard user identities, especially at this point of time where a big part of the organization globally still continue to work remotely, right? It's important to ensure that users have a seamless, secure access to their systems, to their applications, to data at the end of the day, but more importantly, ensuring that you as an administrator, you as a cybersecurity specialist, and whatever important role that you play in your organization, take all the right precautionary measures to safeguard user identities, because many kind of attacks, right from phishing, malware, ransomware, man-in-the-middle attack, and many other different kinds of attacks always target user identities. And that's the first, scope of attack. That's the first layer that we need to pay attention to. That's extremely critical. And user identity compromise is a lot more now than just being a mere, user identity being lost or data being theft. It's almost a national security risk in many countries globally, and it's important for us to definitely pay attention to user identities, protect user identities, while at the same time we facilitate users to take care of their own password resets, especially for the native environment. And there is something that we will be talking about today. I will walk you through a remote live password reset that we will perform as an end user. I'll also be walking you through the different things that you can do to enable users to be able to seamlessly empower users to be able to seamlessly make use of this application, but at the same time ensure that their security is not easily compromised, their access to endpoints and VPNs are taken care of. And once again, a security-driven approach to management is definitely a priority when we speak about managing and when we speak about Zoho applications. And that is something that you can definitely expect from today's session. That said, if you do have any questions that you'd like me to specifically address that's not part of the agenda, please feel free to drop in your messages in the Q&A tab. I'll take time to answer them. But with that said, traditionally, this is how password resets happen, right? Irrespective of, which part of the world you're checking in from, if you do not have an application that helps you self-service users' passwords, the ADUC console is what you resort to. And we will change things today. I'm going to walk you through how you can deploy AD Self-Service Plus for every single user on an organizational level, but more importantly, allow these users to take care of their own password management chores. For that, I am going to quickly jump to access my remote desktop connection here. I've taken a remote desktop connection to this server that's physically available at my workplace. I have set up my ADUC console. I have a custom domain for the workshop purpose. I've also created an OU and created test users trying to replicate a small organization, all right? So we will look at different cases of how things are going to be from an end user's perspective, but talking about self-service, how do you enable users to take care of their own password management chores is our priority for the day. So I'm going to log in as an administrator to my pre-configured AD Self-Service Plus application. I've pre-configured my domain. I've also configured the SelfService policies that I've built right here. For those of you who are familiar with AD Self-Service Plus, who have had the experience of working with the application, pardon me, just a quick second there. Kindly excuse me, I have a sore throat and my voice is cracking, so I would like to sincerely apologize for it. But yes, coming back to what I was talking about, I have created self-service policies with different set of permissions for different user groups, as you see on the screen right here. And this is something that you can definitely achieve. It's pretty straightforward. And if you are somebody who's worked with AD Self-Service Plus before, I'm sure you would have, set up different policies for different user groups. But if not, if you're experiencing the application firsthand for the very first time, please access the demo link that I've passed on to you in the chat console. It's demo.adselfserviceplus.com. It's a live actionable demo. You can log in as an administrator, no credentials required, no sign up required. It's available 24/7, and you will be able to explore the application live along with me. So if you're new to the application, I would highly urge you to make use of the demo setup. But that said, I have set up self-service policies right here with different permissions for different user groups. This could be based on geographical locations, organizations, departments. It could be based on administrative roles. Fine-tune user groups and fine-tune OUs present in your domain, in multiple domains that you're working with on an organizational level, and then be able to work with different permissions, different levels of permissions. As you clearly see, I have multiple domains configured here. I have one entire domain with the same set of permissions, whereas the other domain that I'm working with, I've granularly provided different set of permissions, self-service permissions that you can achieve with AD Self-Service Plus. But let's look at all of this in action, all right? So the primary criteria for a particular user to be able to enjoy the benefits of password self-service, no matter where they're checking in from, on a Tuesday at 2 p.m., if they would like to perform a password reset, they can simply choose to access their AD Self-Service Plus mobile app, web browser, web portal, or do it right from the DNS CP screen. But what's important is for you to enable authenticators so that they can sign up. The users can sign up with these authenticators while going through a password reset process and then verify their identity before proceeding to a successful password reset process. That is what you see right here. I have about 2 levels of authentication. I've set an authenticator mandatory for the password reset and account unlock process. I am very, very sure that with remote working, one of the biggest troubles or one of the biggest overload that your help desk would have faced is definitely password reset tickets. On an average, an organization receives about 30 to 50% of help desk calls that are password related. All right. And this is something that you can definitely choose to, pass on and enable self-service for users to take care of and actually help your help desk or your service desk to focus on priority tasks other than password resets. We'll see how this looks from an end user's perspective. I am going to access my Gina CP screen right here. I'm going to hit the reset password or account unlock option available on my Gina CP that's embedded right here. Let's assume I am a user and I've forgotten my password. I do not have access to my account. All right. What's going to happen is I will be redirected to the AD Self-Service Plus console. Please stick with me. Looks like I'm experiencing a bit of a lag with my lab setup. So when I click reset password, I need to enter my username. I need to enter the captcha, which I've done right here. I believe that's an O, so I'm going to quickly change that. I click to continue. I will then be able to, verify my identity with the Microsoft Authenticator app that you see on the screen. I have pre-configured the authenticator, so I'm going to quickly access the mobile app that I've pre-configured for this particular user. This is me trying to perform a password reset. So let me enter the new code. I click on continue. I'm then redirected to 3 more authenticators, and I need to verify my identity with 1 additional authenticator. As you saw in the configuration steps, I have set Microsoft Authenticator as mandatory, so I will have to go through that method of authentication. So my secondary option is security questions. Once again, this is just, a combination of authenticators that I'm working with for this particular user, for this particular process, right? You will be able to customize more than 15 authenticators, mandate any number of authenticators, but set up to 3 authenticators, enable up to 3 authenticators for users in your organization. And on successful user identity verification, not only will I be able to reset my native Active Directory password, I can also choose to synchronize it with Office 365, provided password synchronization is enabled, which means right from my Gina CP console, not only will I be able to reset my password remotely as an end user with simple user identity verification, I will also be able to synchronize the same password across multiple applications. What's also important here is I will have to meet the custom granular password policy that I have enforced for this particular user. Once again, optional. Pretty much everything that you see today, everything that you see that I'm working with today is customizable and can be granularly enabled for user groups in your organization. But what's important is that you work on enabling a custom granular password policy. Typically not something that looks like this. I've done this deliberately, and I will explain to you very, very soon why. But more importantly, something that allows users in your organization to set better passwords, especially set better passwords for your native Active Directory, right? Because even today, a huge list of users in your organization could potentially have weak, predictable passwords. And this is just being scapegoats to brute force attack. That is not something that we want. That is not something that is advisable. And even with multi-factor authentication, I would highly, highly urge you to pay attention to your password policy on an organizational level. And you can also choose to set up a granular password policy based on different OUs and groups present in Active Directory. So I have had a successful password reset. Clearly, working remotely, sitting at home, I have been able to successfully update my password. But I believe this is not where the real trouble, arises, right? Many a times the problem is with updating cache. That is extremely critical, especially when you work with on-premises Active Directory, because I have worked with many applications. I have had the opportunity to explore many applications, talk to many administrators, and one of the biggest issues for remote working is updating cache credentials. And what's going to happen today, as you see right now, is though I have had a successful password reset for this particular user, I'm going to put it to a test by actually trying to take a remote desktop connection. So what's going to happen in this particular case is if my cache is not updated, if it's a simple password reset and if my cache is not updated, that is going to be a problem. So let me check if the cache is updated. I'm keying in the first factor of authentication for the user Sharada right here. The password that I just reset. Okay. I'm going to wait for that to go through. Stick with me. All right, I'm going to wait for something to happen. And yes, I am redirected to the AD SelfService Plus console right here. So what's typically happened is my first factor of authentication is through, which also means my cache is updated. What's also important here is that I have enabled two-factor authentication for my endpoints for all the remote users logging in and accessing their machines, Windows, Mac, or Linux systems. So it's important for me to verify my secondary factor of authentication as well. I'm logging in as Sharada, so you know I have access to Microsoft Authenticator. But what I'm going to do is deliberately try to bypass the secondary factor of authentication. So let's say my mobile device is not on me, or let's say I am an intruder and I don't have access to the secondary factor of authentication. I try to bypass the secondary factor of authentication. And I have a clear restriction alert which tells me that I need to complete both these steps of authentication to log in and access my machine. This is the level of security that we are trying to achieve. This is the level of privacy we're trying to achieve with an application like AD SelfService Plus, even for remote users. So I have an interesting question that I definitely want to talk about before I move on. Thank you so much, Rahman. I hope I can call you that. Thank you so much, Rahman, for asking that question. Does this also mean that this particular password change will reflect in the Windows OS cache? Yes, it will. I just showed you a live example of it. But what if the user who is performing a password reset is doing it when they're not part of the network, right? I believe that's your question. And right. Yes, so this is the issue that I spoke about. What happens typically in the Microsoft workflows when you try to reset a password while your VPN is not connected, or if you're not part of the network, the password reset will still be successful, but the Active Directory password reset will not be updated, which basically means the password in your AD server will not be updated, and it will be a mismatch, pardon me, it will be a mismatch with your cache. And that just sounds like a tongue twister for me. Sorry about that. Yes, talking about passwords, talking about password resets, what is going to happen typically is that the password reset will be successful. The cache in your machine will not match with the AD server password, right? So that's definitely going to be two passwords, and the user will be able to log in with a new password, but that will be a problem again when they try to connect to the VPN, or when they try to make use of the AD password to log into multiple other applications, like even establish a VPN connection, or be able to log into mail accounts like Outlook, for example. That is definitely an issue, and that is deliberately the workflow set by Microsoft. So what we do to help you bypass this is we help you host AD SelfService Plus, on the internet, which basically means with the help of internet, we will be able to access the AD that's available in your network and help you synchronize passwords. So there are two ways that you can approach this. You can choose to establish a VPN connection, choose to deploy a VPN connection for update of cache credentials, which is something that I'll show you right now. So this is what you can do. You can enable the VPN settings and ensure that the cache is updated. This is how the workflow is going to be. And the other important point here is that AD SelfService Plus, when hosted on the internet, will allow you to perform a successful password reset, allow users to log in and access their accounts, but at the same time be able to, update the cache with the help of VPN tunneling as well. And this is the only workflow that you can work with to achieve update of cache credentials. This is the only possible way that you can achieve updating cache credentials over the VPN or via the internet. So I really hope that answers your question. But in terms of users being able to log in with the password they reset with AD Self-Service Plus, that is definitely possible. And I just did show you a live example of it. All right, so quickly moving on, I want to talk about password expiration reminders, because when we speak about password self-service, not everybody in your organization, you do not want to give password self-service options to everybody in your organization, right? You might want to restrict it to certain user groups. You might want to not provide password self-service for multiple user groups, and that's completely all right. I understand that from a management perspective. I understand that from a security perspective as well. So what we do to help you, reduce your help desk tickets is to simply allow users to be aware of their password expiration pattern or their account expiration scheduler. All right, I have a scheduler up and running today. The last time it ran was today at 12 a.m. I'm sorry about that. Yes, the last time it ran was today. So what this scheduler basically does is it shoots out a password expiry notification to every single user on the organization on specific days with targeted messages. But what's also important is you will be able to notify them via email, SMS, or push notification, basically letting them know that their password is soon to expire. And this simple notification can help multiple users in your organization who do not have the privilege of password self-service try to perform a password reset or account unlock well in advance. Try to perform a password reset or account reset well in advance, be notified about their account expiry, and also not wait until their password is expired. Because once again, the issue will arise when the password that they reset happens without a successful VPN connection, and then there is a mismatch between the cache and the password, right? That's very important. So it's important to ensure that users do it and are aware of the process that they're working with. So a simple email notification will do the job. And trust me when I say this, nearly 90% of users in your organization will reset their password well in advance on a simple mail notification that you shoot out to them. Moving on to talk about a very important aspect of security, especially remote users securely accessing their endpoints, is where multi-factor authentication for logons kick in. We saw a live example right now of the user Sharda trying to log in and access the Windows machine. The secondary factor of authentication failed and the user was denied access. But what's interesting is with AD Self-Service Plus, you will also be able to, establish a secure VPN connection to your establish a secure VPN connection with multi-factor authentication, which is what I'm going to show you right now. Because of the firewall restrictions that my organization has, I have basically hosted AD and AD Self-Service Plus on the cloud. I have an Amazon AWS setup up and running. So I'm going to try to take a VPN to that particular server that's on the cloud right now. So I'm doing this live. My first factor of authentication is keyed in, which is nothing but my native Windows Active Directory password. What I am going to do next is wait for the first factor of authentication to go through. And I have configured Google Authenticator for the user Adam. I'm working with test accounts. These are all dummy users, so don't worry about that. But yes, I have pre-configured this. I click on send to get access to my AWS server to this particular network. I'm going to wait for that to go through. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, please keep them coming. If you want me to talk about a particular use case that's not part of the agenda, please feel free to drop in your questions. All right. So yes, coming back to the point, talking about securing endpoints, it's important to safeguard access to VPNs. But what's also important and something that I would highly recommend is not provide universal RDP access to users in your organization. Ensure only the right people have right access to the right machine at the right time. And that's the bare minimum that you can do to ensure user identity is not easily compromised. And multi-factor authentication is going to save you nearly 99.9% user identity-based cybersecurity attacks, save you from user identity-based cybersecurity attacks. And that's great, right? With simple additional authenticators, almost every single user in your organization is safe from being susceptible to an identity theft, an identity compromise, data theft. And in today's world, especially with most of us still continuing to work remotely, the increase in cybersecurity attacks is by 600% annually. And that is huge. That number is big. So all you need to do is ensure that users take care of their own password management chores to, bring in the idea of privacy while we deal with native Active Directory password resets. But at the same time, ensure that the usability is not compromised, ensure that the security is not compromised by introducing multi-factor authentication across endpoints, across the self-service process, the AD Self-Service Plus logon, and this is all you need to do to ensure user identity is not easily compromised, especially remote workers, especially for remote workers. Coming back to the topic of password policy, like I said, it's not just about multi-factor authentication. It's not just about enabling users to have to go through multiple factors of authentication while passwords not being at their best behavior, right? It's important for passwords to be good enough too. And that is also the first layer of defense. That is also the only authenticator that you probably have for multiple applications, for multiple device authentication as well. So it's important for your AD password to be secure. And the best thing that you can do for every single user in your organization is to try and understand how some of the more basic password-based attack happens. We know for a fact that the more common password-based attacks are pattern-based attack, password history-based attack, incremental password-based attack, dictionary-based attack, palindrome password-based attack. And all this definitely plays a huge role when it comes to brute force as well, right? You can definitely increase the length, prioritize length over complexity, restrict dictionary words, restrict patterns that are predictable like password, test, admin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can choose to disallow characters from the username, from the old password itself. And with just these complexity rules, you're definitely not only inculcating a sense of responsibility amongst users in your organization, you're also taking the step to ensure that users' identities are not easily compromised while a password compromise takes place, right? Because you make it difficult for a password-based brute force attack to happen. And with AD Self-Service Plus, you can also choose to restrict any and all passwords that have been leaked, that are part of databases of password leaks that have happened previously, right? It's important for you to do that as well. And with just these complexity rules, you are definitely taking into account password entropy, which means today, if I, as an end user, try to change my password from the Gina CP console from my Windows machine, I'm working with Windows today. Let me show you a live example of why and how a good password is going to help you, a good password policy is going to help you. This is a clear indicator that I've met almost all the complexity rules that you see on the screen, right? But I'll show you what this password is. It's password at 123, the infamous password at 123. But because I have the AD Self-Service Plus password policy enabled, it's a clear rejection. This password is not acceptable. And that is all you need to do to not only, like I said, inculcate the responsibility amongst users in your organization to have or work with better password practices, but also to simply deny them from setting weak passwords and safeguarding your first layer of defense, which is passwords, safeguarding the most targeted, most targeted entity, if I can say that, which is users, right? Users are the most targeted targets or most targeted entity when it comes to cybersecurity attacks. Even today, 62% of attacks, more than a half, target end users with social engineering techniques. And you can simply prevent that huge majority by paying attention to your password reset, by paying attention to your password policy. I have a quick question from Franciscus. I am sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Do these only apply if you're using AD Self-Service Plus to the reset password, or even the internal windows, the Control-Alt-Delete password reset? This works to the Control-Alt-Delete password reset as well, which is what I just performed. I try to change the password right from the Gina CP screen, which is the change password console right here. I can also choose to, do this for the password reset process from the Windows machine that I'm working with, or the Mac or Linux systems that your users can potentially work with or have. You can definitely do this with the AD SelfService Plus mobile app, the mobile browser, the web browser as well. So here I will show you a quick example of how password reset happens if you have access. So I'm working with the default settings, right? So I've not hosted AD SelfService Plus on the internet. I'm working with AD SSP as a service, and I've not disabled the admin logon. I'm working with the default settings for this particular product session, but you can choose to customize this particular page, customize your URL as well. What's going to happen in this particular case is that only the forgot your password and account unlock link pops in here. The login will be denied to administrative console. Users can log in and access to enroll with authenticators, log into single sign-on apps, but more importantly, be able to perform password resets or account unlocks right from the web browser, this particular web console as well. Please excuse me. I wish my voice was better, but it's constantly cracking, so I have to take pauses. Thank you so much for your patience. And yes, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much. If you do have more questions, please keep them coming. All right, is this available in French? I am going to quickly check for it. I know AD SelfService Plus is available in 18 languages. I'm going to check if French is in the list. So just give me a couple of seconds. We'll do it live. That's interesting. I believe it should be there. I'm clicking on the admin console. Personalize language customization. Yes, we do have French, 2 options for French as well. And that includes for patterns as well. So when I go to the configuration tab, when I click on password policy info, so I believe that your question is around password policy. You can choose to enter patterns. This is a simple CSV, right? So you can choose to enter patterns in French. I'm sorry, I do not know the language, but you can definitely choose to input patterns as well. What's interesting is also you can choose to upload your own custom dictionary, which could be a French dictionary. You can choose to disallow French words as well. So we support that, and that can definitely be done. You can also choose to run the entire application in the native language. We thankfully support French, so that's good news. I had to quickly check that. But yes, thank you so much for that question. Is the security okay for hosting on the internet? Yes, absolutely. I can vouch for it personally. I also want to let you know that with Manage Engine applications, with Zoho applications, the utmost priority is to security and is to privacy. And even while we approach management, we try to not compromise on security. So yes, it's absolutely safe to host AD SelfService Plus on the internet. In fact, please write to me after I wrap up today's session. I will give you a detailed document on hosting, how to host it securely, and what you need to do and what we pay attention to while your application is hosted on the internet. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. But yes, even while talking about identity and access management, even while talking about management, better, efficiently managing your Active Directory, our utmost priority is to security, is definitely to usability as well before we try to make things easy for users. So it is definitely secure to host AD SelfService Plus on the internet. All right, with that, I've almost come to the end of today's session. If you do have more questions, please keep them coming. I also want to quickly remind you that the entire session was recorded and it was recorded live. So a copy of today's session will reach your inbox within the next couple of days. Since the recording is live, please give us a couple of days, a day or two, to edit the raw recording, polish it a bit before we can ensure that a link reaches your inbox. With that, I have almost covered all the exercises in today's agenda. If you do have more questions, since the majority of you here today are customers of AD Self-Service Plus, I understand that, you probably have a better experience of working with the application real time, in a real time scenario, more than me. And I'm very, very happy to see a lot of you here. But if you do have any more questions that I can help you with, please feel free to drop in your messages. I also want to quickly remind you that the session feedback form is on your screen. Please pardon me. The session feedback form is on your screen. So please do take a couple of seconds to answer the feedback form that is on your screen. If you have any topics that you'd like me to talk about in the near future, any suggestions, ideas, criticism that you'd like to pass on, please feel free to make use of the chat console. You can also write to me at any point of time. I'm available at shard@manageengine.com. Any resources that I can help you with, any documents that I can help you with, anything that you'd like to understand, in terms of giving you a better experience of working with AD Self-Service Plus. But more importantly, if you are, from the technical background, and if you're curious about how things work in the backend, you can definitely feel free to write to me, and I'd be more than happy to share the resources, explain it to you, even set up a personalized session with you. So looking forward to your emails, looking forward to being in touch with you. I really hope this session was informative. I really hope it helped you better understand AD Self-Service Plus, and I ensure, I'm hoping, I also very, very positively hope that every single user in your organization gets a great experience out of AD Self-Service Plus and does not have any trouble while working with the application, does not have any trouble with password resets more specifically, and can, save downtime, can help you save the administrative load when it comes to password resets. That's my hope. And yes, the link will reach your inbox in the registered email address. Thank you so much, Michael. The entire recording will reach your inbox in the email address that you've registered for this particular event. That said, before I check out of today's session, I want to quickly put this thought across. I wish, hope, and pray you, your friends, your family, and your near and dear are blessed with great health and happiness. I really, really hope that we come out of this pandemic as healthier, happier individuals. That's my prayer and wish for every single one of you. Please take great care, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my upcoming sessions and hopefully in the near future in your country or mine. Until then, this is Sharada Murthy signing off for the day. Thank you so much and namaste.